Mary Duncan, welcome to the Vermillion Unplugged. How are you doing today?
Really well, thank you. Thank you for having
Sweet.
me.
Now, so you got recommended, and my wife was telling me about it. She says, hey, you should get Mary Duncan. And I was like, what does she do? So she told me about the Head Start, but she mostly told me about that you're involved with the foster. And we'll get into that later. But right now, so what do you do?
Sure, I'm so for my career, I'm the assistant director at Head Start, and USD Head Start has our main offices in Vermillion, and we are an early childhood program federally funded through the Office of Head Start. And so our Head Start grant has been sponsored through the University of South Dakota for nearly 50 years. So we're pretty well established in early childhood in Vermillion.
So what is I've seen the Head Start, like especially like in downtown. I've seen signs everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
What is Head Start? Because actually I don't know, and I thought when I saw it, I was like, wait, I don't know if it's for adults. Then I heard it's for kids, but I was thinking, is it a preschool? But they also got the public school. But what is that?
Sure. So we have actually two grants. We have an early Head Start grant and a Head Start grant. So our early Head Start program actually serves expectant families and then children birth to age 3. And our early Head Start program is 100% home-based, which means that we have all of our home visiting staff have degrees, and they're going out into homes with a lesson plan, and they're helping families with those developmental areas. So language and literacy, fine motor, gross motor, and helping families just look at techniques and ways to help their child grow. And our ultimate goals are to help get those kiddos ready for preschool and then kindergarten. Kindergarten readiness is kind of one of our biggest things. So on the other side of things, Head Start, a lot of people think of Head Start and they think of preschool, or they think of the child care centers, because we have classrooms at the child care centers. So we serve 155 Head Start children and 83 expectant women and children under the age of 3 total. So, when in all of our communities, we serve Clay, Lincoln, Turner, and Union counties. And so we have the home-based program throughout all of those areas. And we have one Head Start home visitor who, again, goes into those rural communities and brings like a preschool lesson plan into the homes and helps prepare children for kindergarten. But in our preschool classrooms and at home, we believe that parents are a child's best teacher and that children learn best through play. So everything we do is based on those principles. And so we have classrooms set up to help children learn. And you're going to go in, you're going to see blocks and dress up, and you're going to see a water table. And yes, kids are going to be learning about their ABCs at that water table as they fill the ABC capsules and play with the water. So we try to incorporate those early learning tools and symbols in all of the different modules there, that the centers that the children that play in within our preschool classroom. So it's a fun program. So the basis of it is really that are low income or at risk. And I don't usually like that term, but, it could be for 100 different reasons. So, if a family is eligible for SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Program, they're eligible for Head Start. If a family, maybe we do have some income guidelines, but if a family thinks they're going to be over income, we still encourage them to apply, because especially if there's been some stressors in your family, or if you have developmental concerns for your child or anything like that, there may be additional points associated on your application. So we do a needs-based entry. So whereas like we're going to put you on that waiting list, well, it's really a needs-based waiting list. And so our applications are scored, and those highest scored children are accepted first. We look at the score. and then what classroom they would be in, and then what the child's name is. So we really our entry is based on application scores, and trying to make sure we're serving the children and families that really need our services the most. So, um, uh, yeah.
So with that Head Start, so it's like needs based for a kid, or yeah, I guess it would be a kid or a toddler. Is there like a big advantage when they do the Head Start and then they go to the pre-care kindergarten, or what have you
Well, we
guys seen?
hope so, because a lot of statistics and data tell us that children who are maybe low income or have experienced trauma or multiple traumas early on may have other risk factors or delays. And so we hope our program is helping to identify any needs for that child or family, help families get referrals where they need it, help, we do health, nutrition, education / development, social emotional screenings for our children. So there's screenings, and what we try to do is help make sure that if there's a need, we're able to get the resources for a family early on. A really big thing is hearing, and early hearing detection, and because so much can be taken care of early on for hearing difficulties for children. And so we have top-notch hearing equipment where we screen every child within the first 45 days of coming into the program for hearing, vision, where they are developmentally and social emotionally, so that we can see what the family needs might be and what the child needs, and help get them referrals, help get them an individual lesson plan set up, help make accommodations as needed. They don't even have to be in an IEP yet, but we know this child might need some extra help over here. Or so I think that's what makes us different than maybe if you're going to a regular paid-based preschool, because we're really here to make sure those kids who might be at risk of maybe being left behind are getting those full services. We have comprehensive services, that mental health, nutrition, family services, and our family services staff might be leaving this afternoon to go and visit a family who is at risk of homelessness or being unhoused, and making sure that they know what resources they have, what their rights are, and where they can go or what they might be able to do less, and assuring them they're not going to lose their, you know, preschool spot in one of our child care centers, because we know that if a family's unhoused, one of the biggest things is being able to have that child care taken care of, right? So that they can get another job or get into another place. And there's so many little things that go into that. So just making sure families know that they'll still have the consistency of our program.
So why do you think that, like in a family that's, let's say, just say low income, how come those kids get left behind? Like
There's tons of risk factors. So, sometimes it's just, a parent's working 4 jobs, and they have maybe 3 different people helping to watch their kids, or a teenager helping to watch their kids. And, so who's at home helping to make sure, when that mom's working 4 jobs, she's a single parent, who's helping to make sure that the kid's learning their ABCs, or is having conversation back and forth like this, right? Because talking to a child and using big words around a child is how they learn and develop their speech. And so I can think of 100 different reasons, but that's one of them. We know our families are working families. We know our families are busy. We have families who are going back to school and are maybe from or are in school and are from another country and are just learning English. And so we have resources to help that family get into second language programs and that kind of stuff, so that that child is learning in the classroom. And that family who's going to school here at USDU maybe doesn't have to worry about a paid preschool program to kind of give their child a leg up. So just things like that. It's not all, the risk factors aren't always on the surface of just being like low income, but there could be 1,000 things. So I think a lot of people, when they think of Head Start, think of either the child care centers, or they think of, because here in town, that's where 2 of our classrooms are, or they think of that my child has to have a disability. And we serve children with disabilities, and we help identify or help screen for um, delays in disabilities, and have helped many, many families get kind of in the loop with services. But that's not like an entry prerequisite or anything for our program. So I think that um, sometimes families don't realize what trauma is, or
Yeah,
what would be considered
I
trauma.
agree.
And a child having an ACE or an adverse child experience score of just 2, 3, or 4 at an early age is not uncommon. And just that can set a child behind. And that's not always a low income thing. That can be a high income thing and any income thing. But sometimes in our communities and with our families, we can see it a little bit more. Um, so we're trying to kind of help build that resilience and help give families the tools that they need to be ready for kindergarten, to be ready to put their kids into the school system, and put the tools in their backpack that they might need as parents, calling in when their child is absent,
Yeah.
which sounds like a funny thing, but calling into preschool to say, hey, my kid's going to be sick today is a big thing. And getting used to doing that early on during preschool time is important. So when you get into kindergarten, you're not missing that call. You're used to doing it, right? Things like that.
And then one thing that I never knew was how involved, like, us as, for example, like as a parent, you have to be with your kids when they're young. Because it's changed with Victoria. Like when we came here, she was either like 5 or 6 years old, and I remember, I started working at the university, and I would go back home, and I remember Myra, she was still at home, stay-at-home mom. And then, I get home, I'm tired, and I don't want to do anything. And then, like, for example, like, Victoria would be like, oh, you want to do this? I'm like, maybe another time. Or, I don't want to go outside, or this and that. And then I think Myra, she was saying, well, you got to be more involved. I'm like, why not? Just give her, I was thinking, we never did. I was like, hey, well, she could just watch TV or just give her the iPad. That's what everyone does. But then she showed me some stuff and how it affects kids. I'm like, but I did that, I think. But I was like, did I? I never had an iPad back then. So that, being, that interaction with parents, or especially with other kids, not just being, just at home, because there is some
being active, period.
Yes.
Being active and having movement and being outside and playing and not just sitting in front of a screen. That's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all that, like, being social, you got to get, like, those kids got to be talking and everything. It all that stuff. You know what worried me though? I don't know how it is here, but I was very, very scared because Victoria didn't know, because we speak Spanish at home. So she only spoke Spanish, and she didn't speak any English. That was our mistake. My bad. So I know back in...
That is not a mistake. That is nothing to... Yeah. No.
But she didn't know any English. And I was like, man, dude, how is she going to learn the English? Because back where I'm from, they have the... what do you call it? ELA? Yes?
English immersion and things like that.
Yeah, stuff like that, so the kids could start learning. And I called up here, or my bad, the public schools, they didn't have nothing like that. And I'm like, oh man, she's gonna be like, it's gonna be horrible. But then, like, we put her in kindergarten. It was like the last 2 weeks of May. We put her in there, and she did fine. And then over the summer, she got, like, we went to the park. She got involved with kids, and boom, she learned English just like that. And I was like, okay.
Really those early years are the time for anyone to pick up a language. And you touched on something that we're actually working on as a program, is helping to make sure our staff understand and then our parents understand that being bilingual is a strength, that your child having that home language and then also learning English, we want them to have both. You want them to have both. It's actually that second language development early on actually opens up their prefrontal cortex early on. They have more brain development happening because they're learning another language. So they're able to be a little bit more creative with things. And it's amazing. It's so interesting to see that just that second language development, that it's actually helping more than what some people might think. So I'm glad that the park and doing a little bit of schooling helped kind of get your daughter in. But that's one of the things with our families on, is to understand that yes, you want them in the Head Start program, but we want you to be talking with them in their home language. So whether it's Lakota or Spanish or whatever it might be, that they can learn both, and it'll be a strength for them moving forward. So
what's your not to get too off topic,
yeah.
but what's your views on like public school, private school, and homeschooling?
I think they all have strengths, and uh, whatever a family chooses is going to be right for them. Parents are a child's first and best teacher. So if a family's choosing to homeschool, one of the biggest things with children is that social emotional development. So having good tools and resources for social emotional development is key, right? Because at home, if it's just your family, you really want your kid to still be able to interact and know how to act around other children and other families. And so that's important. And, our early Head Start program, we have children who, um, families who get involved just for our play and learn sessions or our PALs. So what you see downtown Vermillion is our PALs location, where we have activities for our families to come together, and a couple of times a month. Sometimes they're held at parks, sometimes they're held other places. We might have parent meetings down there. But those socializations for young children, and especially for young parents, parents with really young children or expectant parents, oh my gosh, so important. And one of the things that comes out of that is that the parents interact as well as the kids, and you see the kids begin to build friendships, and then you see the parents building friendships and connecting too. So those things are really important. So whether it's public school or homeschooling or private schooling, I really think the biggest pieces of it are still do they have what they need to be successful? So do they have the tools in their toolbox? Do they, for us, some of the areas we concentrate on are those early learning things like your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s, your colors and shapes. But also, can your gross motor and fine motor, can you hold a pen or pencil, crayons, and are you holding it correctly by the time your child's ready for kindergarten? Are you practicing with other things, paint and this and that? Like I said, water, you can just paint with water on a sidewalk. That's an activity, and your child is using some of that fine motor grip on that paintbrush outside, and having fun, right, with water. And that water melts, dries up a little bit, and can paint again with some water. So there's just different ways to kind of get involved and get your kid learning, your children learning. So yeah.
So what do you think about, you've heard that term like, an iPad kid, when they're always on the iPad, or you see like sometimes, let's say a kid's crying or, making a fuss, and they're like, well, here's the iPad, or here's the phone, this and that. What do you think about that?
There's a lot of science and research out there that actually says that really early, that children under a certain age shouldn't have too much exposure to some of those electronic systems, mostly because you want them to be playing and interacting. You want them to be doing that pretend play with their car and the Barbies and the I have a Barbie house in our living room. And my favorite thing is to see my kids put their cars up on there, and like their little toy cars, and having like all kinds of other toys up there besides just Barbies, because they're really getting into that pretend play and making things up and making, what's a new way we can use this, kind of thing. So that pretend play is really important. So if you're getting some electronics time in there, are your kids also getting a break in there to really explore and try things? And is the electronics monitored? Like, my kids aren't allowed on YouTube. My 9-year-old gets so upset. Like, I'm gonna watch this YouTube at blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to let you just get on YouTube.
No, my wife does the same thing. Like, they have like YouTube Kids, and before I'd be like, yeah, that's fine, she can do it. But then no, she's like, no, we got to put like a time limit, this and that. And at first I thought, aren't you being a little strict? But then I'm like, okay, yeah, hey, we gotta let's go to the park, or let's do this, or hey, you go to your friend's house, not just be on it. Because it's super strange for me. So I grew up in that time. So I'm from 1995, and I grew up when, like internet started happening and we started, getting more involved with electronics. So I remember when I was a kid, like video games, I play that all the time. I remember playing my Game Boy, my DS, when me and my cousins or friends, we would just, be playing video games, but also being outside and this and that. So I don't know if it's like I got lucky, because nowadays you can see a lot of just kids with iPads all the time. But I'm like, man, I wish I had that. But I guess it's kind of good that I didn't, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, and it's, there's a lot of skill building that happens too with someone who understands video gaming. And I mean, talk about fine motor skill, being able to jump. I can't use a controller.
Yeah.
My nephew has tried to teach me how to play Minecraft multiple times, and I know that's the game to learn and really get into, right? Nope, I cannot do it. It's kind of funny. He's like, I'm going to set you up on, just the building area where there's not going to be any creepers or anything like that. And still don't understand how to make a table and use it. Like, so, so from not having those video games when I was really, really little, probably, maybe that is where some of that develops, is that understanding of like the real joystick control and doing things. But I've never been good at it.
Yeah, I think it helps with like, okay, we are getting off topic, but I do like the video game thing. I could talk about that for hours. But like, for example, me and Myra, we're the same age, but I grew up with video games and she didn't. So, you heard of that game Fortnite, right?
Yes.
So these past few years, I've been trying to get her to play with me. And, she, for some reason, she never played it. So she had like the controller and she's like doing this. I'm like, just aim, just aim this and shoot that. Just grab that. It's the button. She's looking at the button. I'm like, it's not that hard. But I'm like, well, I grew up with, I know what to do. So now she kind of, now she gets it. And I'm like, man, I guess it is different. But also a positive thing with that is like the team base. You play with people online, or you play with people, friends. If you play like a game together against other people, you're in a squad, your teammates, you're like, hey, let me help you out with this. Let me get you health. Or, hey, we got to go this way, or I'm going over to here. So that's how we play. Okay, we're getting off topic. But no, let's go.
That's okay.
I see it.
I see it. Yeah. I think what really the science out there, what they're saying though, is you're talking what our program really serves those children who are, pre-birth to 5 years old. And those kids do not need to be sitting in front of a television playing video games for 10 hours. So we want them playing, and we want them, and if they are occasionally, I mean, that's not, but we want them playing. We want them learning how to interact with each other physically, so that they're not, so they understand what sharing is. So they begin those beginner concepts. And there's tons of techniques we can use in a classroom to help encourage sharing and teach a child to share. But those are some of those social emotional things that develop by interacting with others. So
sweet. But what else do you got? I see you got like a bunch of notes, and I need to know more about this Head Start stuff. It's kind of cool. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So my notes here were just kind of like what our options are and what our program is about, so that if I forgot something, I could look down. But big things about our program is, when I mentioned earlier about individualized curriculum or individualized learning for a child, we look at every family and sit down with them and say, what goals do you have for your child we just talked about fine motor and gross motor, right? Or nutrition, so it might be, for an infant, like weaning them off a bottle, or getting them to use a fork, or learning to jump, right? And developing some of those gross motor activities. And so then we give examples of what you can do to help your child learn in those areas. And then parents can track time that they spend with their child. And we call those parent-child hours, but they're helping their child towards goals in areas the same areas that they're looking at and being tracked on in a classroom level. And so if a child does have a disability and they're on an IEP or an IFSP, individual education plan, or I forget the IF is, but that's usually those are for your kiddos who are under the age of 3 before they get into the preschool age level. And so we can include some of those goals that might be on your IEP or IFSP for your child on your goals at home to give you examples of ways to work with your child. I mean, that's the whole thing is you mentioned like, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things we help families with is looking at ways you can help your child grow and develop. And and uh, uh and then in the long term, what's that going to do for your family, right? Like, do you have goals as a family? What can we do to help you reach your family goals? What can we do to help you on a path to graduating from college, and working with your child to get them ready for kindergarten? Because, that family unit, whether it's a single mom, a foster parent, a grandparent, whoever that family unit may be, their goals are going to be a little bit different, and the way they work with their children are going to be a little bit different. And there's grandparents who are like, I have no idea how to take care of a 2-year-old, but I'm now taking care of this 2-year-old. And so we're able to work from a different perspective with families.
Now let's get into the fostering. I like the shirt that you have. It says we need more foster parents.
I always had to do a deep breath and know what the true intent of this shirt is really to engage people in our community to get involved. In South Dakota, there's kind of that history where there is a lot of trauma around fostering, and especially in our Native American communities. I don't know how many people actually sit down and read the DSS annual report, but I do for my job, right? I pull data out of there. And, like, the majority of the children going into care are Native American, and it breaks my heart. And so, like, I don't want to say we need more foster parents, but what I really want to say is we need more support systems, right? We need more support systems for these families, for substance misuse, so families know what to do, or how to get help, and that it doesn't have to be the end of their family unit when something happens, and to connect. So one of the big things right now are kinship families. That's so a relative who might be taking care of their niece or nephew or grandchild, whatever it might be. Those relatives aren't licensed foster parents necessarily unless they go through the whole process, and so they're not getting that same state level support as a kinship family. And so what we're trying to do here in Vermillion is build that support wraparound system. And in the long term, in the future, I visualize us as a community wrapping around our families that need it. So whether it's, the families who have a child with disabilities and they need that extra help, whatever it might be. But right now we're wrapping around our foster and kinship and adoptive families. And WRAP is words of encouragement, acts of service, respite, and prayer. And WRAP volunteers can help. So I think they're looking at like 3 to 5 WRAP volunteers for each foster or kinship family. And the number one reason why people don't become foster parents, or why foster parents decide not to renew their license after 1 year or 2 years, is because of that support system. And so WRAP is helping provide a community support system for a family. And so I'm so thankful for WRAP. It's like I just said, I so many like mixed feelings of like blessings, and I wish it wasn't so. My family was kind of put together, grown through the love of foster care. And so, when my youngest was brought into care, I'm now his permanent guardian, right? But when he was brought into care, it was direct from the hospital. He's a newborn, and he's a sibling to 2 of my other kiddos, and we didn't know that the mom was expecting again. And it's like, oh, this is scary, you know? And I had people delivering meals. It was like, um, I had people showing up and just rocking my baby. I had people just show up to let me go take a shower and like all those things that new parents need. And you know, I'm a single foster parent, and so to have all of that system that WRAP helped provide, and I had a couple of friends in there too who were coming over and just we just want to sit and rock the baby and read a book. Go ahead, I'm gonna sleep. So, but you know, a WRAP really, you know, the WRAP program here in Vermillion had launched then and then kind of fell apart. But it was together when I needed it to be as a foster parent. And it kind of got me through that first 6 months to a year of having 3 really, really, really little kids in my home. And, you know, I had one WRAP family who they would come and take my, I guess he was 2.5 or 3 years old at the time. They would take him and my 7, 8-year-old. So here I'm trying to like put their ages in context from when the baby was born, right? And take them to the pool, right? It's just taking 2 kids to the pool for 2 or 3 hours. But then I only had an 18-month-old and a newborn at home and not 4 kids who were kind of going crazy on a Saturday in the house. And it was 102 degrees out. And so I didn't want them all outside, right? So things like that, where just taking the kids to the pool so that the baby didn't have to be out in the 100-degree heat, things like that. I was so grateful. And so when we got the opportunity to launch WRAP again here in Vermillion, it's just kind of become a big passion of mine to make sure we're recruiting foster parents here in the community and letting families know that there's a support and wraparound, and then helping foster parents who are getting involved in the fostering system understand how important it is to build those relationships with the families they're working with, right? So I adopted my oldest last year.
Oh, congratulations.
And, I'm still connected to her birth family and sending videos and doing calls and that kind of stuff. And I know for her family it's meaningful, but I know for her it's meaningful because it's children grieve a loss differently when they're in foster care and they know their parent is still there, right? And no 7 or 8-year-old can fully understand why their parent, they can't go back to that parent. But, well, maybe in some cases they can. But to be able to connect and wrap around and show other families that it can be possible to keep those connections and build that relationship, and to have the birth family say that they're thankful that I'm caring for her, you know, my heart still says I wish it wasn't that way, but on the other side of it, you know, I'm thankful and caring for her because, you know, I adore her. And so sorry, I love being a foster parent, and I love that we're looking at ways to wrap around and support our families in a different way here.
You, it looks like you influenced my wife Myra because is that what she's involved with the
WRAP? Yep.
Yeah, she's involved with that. Man, she's been telling me, I didn't know nothing about how fostering or what happens with kids. I didn't know nothing about that. I was not aware until she started talking about it. And then I think so. It looks like we're in the process of becoming foster parents. I think so.
Did you maybe get your arm twisted a little bit to look at it? That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, because at first I was not too much on board because I was I don't want to do that. I don't know. First of all, I had a bad impression. I was like, I don't know who these kids are. I seen the movie The Orphan. That's probably not accurate. But then
it can be.
Then when we were talking, I forgot the lady about or scheduling something. We're going through the process, and then she mentioned something about because I think she asked if we spoke Spanish, and we're like, yeah, we speak Spanish. And she said there's a bunch of well, I don't know how many, but she said there's a bunch of kids in the state that only speak Spanish that need help. And then for me, I was like, oh, no, I kind of felt something like, oh, snap. Okay. I didn't know that. I don't know if I'm biased or something, but I was like, wow, okay, that's.
Could you imagine how scary that would be as a kid to go into a home, stranger's home, and they don't know any of your language?
Mm.
And that would be so scary as a kid. So, yeah, that's a really great strength for your family to be able to look at helping kiddos who are Spanish only or Spanish first.
Yeah. But with you, Mary, I do want to bring more awareness, especially with the community about fostering, because I feel like maybe a lot of people do not know much about. I didn't know about it. I'm honest, I didn't know much about it.
So we have a few foster families here in Vermillion, but I'm licensed, but I have 4 kids at home, and I can't. I have taken more, but it's a lot to look at 6 or 7 kids as a single parent, right? And so we do need other families in our community, because otherwise we end up having a child from Vermillion who might come into care and maybe only need temporary care, but the home that they can find a place for them might be 4 hours away. And so then the connections for that family to be able to heal, to be able to look at what they need to reconnect to the skills that parent may need to build, or those parents may need to build, or those grandparents may need to build. They're not able to do that as directly or easily, or their visitation may not be happening as often because they end up across the state. And that is tough. And that is why, even though I have some, conflicting thoughts and feelings about it, that is why I wear the shirt. We need more foster parents, because in this community, there's not really an availability of homes where if there was a child who came into care here in Vermillion, a bunch of people raising their hands saying, oh, we have space and we have, we're able to take a child. And it can be a month. It can be 6 weeks. My first placement was 6 weeks. My second foster placement was 9 months, and I'm still connected to those families. And it's the way you look at that relationship of understanding that parents come from different backgrounds and they come from different skill sets. Some parents may have a disability or not realize that they don't have the same abilities, or may not have the education and background or the social emotional skills, right? Like just going into it and understanding that this parent isn't always angry. They maybe weren't ever given the heads up or opportunity to develop that social emotional skill to really build those conversations, right? And maybe this parent over here just needs a support system. They were a really young parent and they had a lot of trauma when they were a kid, and they need to know that there's an adult that they can go to and talk to that person and ask them the hard questions. I had one of my past families, one of the parents of a kiddo that I had in my care, one of the parents asked me about how to get into a treatment program. That was really brave of you to ask me that. Here, let me hold on just a minute. Let me look up all the information and make some calls, and I will get you as much information as possible, because I want to see you succeed as a parent, and I want to see you be that person for your child that you can be. So, it, as a foster parent, I can say that it ends maybe when the child goes back, but I've never experienced that where I've been able to build relationships with these families, and they've come to me. And, one of my kiddos, my kiddo Jay, he knew he had a mom, he knew he had a dad, and I was his Mary. And so I'm going to pick him up at daycare and be like, my Mary's here. Like he would say, my mom is here. He's like, my Mary's here. And I was like, his Mary. And all the staff loved it. They would laugh because like, I'm going to have to ask my Mary. And so my kiddo Jay, I got to see him on his birthday this year. And we spent some time together, and just to watch him grow, that was, my gosh, 5 years ago that he stayed with me. And so to keep those connections, it's so important for these families to know that in the long term, they do have that resilience factor. They have somebody that their child can rely on or that they may be able to rely on. And we don't necessarily look at ourselves as that on the surface, right? Because we're really in it to help serve these children who come from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds. And these kiddos just need somebody to love them, even if it's for right now. And get attached, get attached, because you know what, that attachment, it might hurt if you have to let go. But for that child, then they know what it means to have that support and that connection, and a male caregiver who they can rely on, who will run around circles with them in the park over and over and over again, and that they can go to and have a book read to them, whatever it might be. But they also know that when you get upset, that you're not going to hit them, and you're not going to try to smother them, and you're not going to try to, right? So, trying to help provide those healthy boundaries and those show what a healthy relationship might look like, or what a healthy family system might look like. And yeah.
Sweet. You're an angel, Mary.
I was so bored. I was almost 40 years old, and I was like, I don't have kids. I'm not in a place to have kids. I'm not in a relationship. Like, watching Netflix every day, and I was going to every single one of my nephew's soccer games. They were coming over to my house for slumber parties, and we were making all the baking things and all that. They decorated my Christmas trees, and then I fixed them and made them, look. made them look the way I wanted them to, right? But they still decorated them first. But I was like, I have the space to help, and even if it's just for right now, at least I'm that somebody for these children for right now, and they can have all the love in the world and all the connections that they need.
Mm-hmm. So before we run out, because it looks like we're running out of time, do you got any last things or last words you want to give out? Any shout outs or something?
Yeah. So WRAP is, Savannah Wise is helping to coordinate WRAP here in Vermillion. And so I'm going to give a shout out to Savannah, but also to Leah Bjorn in Yankton, who has helped really launch WRAP in our area. So if there's any foster kinship families, so I know that this area is also served by the Yankton Sioux Tribal Foster Care System. They operate separately. So if there's any foster parents who have children through the tribes, through kinship families, that kind of thing, where maybe you need a WRAP system, that please connect to our WRAP. So it should be by the time, right? I'll have this Facebook page ready. So kind of search on Facebook. You can look me up, and I should have it on my Facebook page too as a public post, connections for the Vermillion WRAP, and Vermillion WRAP and foster families, so that Vermillion can connect together and know where to go to get those WRAP services and how to get involved in WRAP. It's really, really simple. And so even if a family, as a WRAP volunteer, you're going out and you're bringing a meal, you're bringing, I got some really neat toys at the Civic Council thrift store that I cleaned up nicely and gave to a kiddo for a family that we're wrapping around. And he loved them. So you don't have to spend a ton of money. And if you don't have time to bake a ton of meals, but your support can be checking in with this parent, this foster family, and just letting them know that if they need you for respite, an hour here, if you're going to the park with your kids, that you can take a couple kids with you, or whatever it might be, that WRAP can look differently, and that we need all types of volunteers for that. I have one other thing, though. We are, because we have a few volunteers here in Vermillion, and they're not all connected to foster families yet, we're going to try to make over the Vermillion DSS office. So my very first placement, foster placement that I had, came home from the very first visit with his family at the DSS office and said there was nothing. The games had pieces missing. The room was yucky. It was not fun. So And that was a few years ago, right? So I asked, is the room still like that? And they were like, yeah, we're making over that room. So we're going to make it as comfy as possible. And unfortunately, that room is also used if there's a family or their children who don't have a place to go overnight. They end up sleeping in the DSS office. So we're going to make some kind of convertible, like a futon couch in there, and
Cool.
kind of fold out furniture for the children that if they end up having to spend, but we don't want that to happen. But to be honest, it does. They stay there or in hotel rooms, right? And so, and staff are staffing their regular caseload and that hotel room to take care of those kids in a hotel room. So that's why we need foster families. But this DSS visitation room needs some real help. So we have kind of like a wish list out there, and we'll be getting some volunteers to maybe, I don't know, I hope we can paint it, but kind of get some modular furniture in there, and it has like one of those 1970s floral maroon couches that look like the full weight of it is dust, and a wooden rocking chair, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a new mom and you're sitting in a rocker for an hour while your child sleeps, right, that is not comfortable for a long length of time. So just some comfier furniture for the families and games and activities. Anyway, I'm excited to do something with that room. So, yeah.
Sweet. No, I learned a lot. Sweet. No, I wanted to thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks.